All right, Bobby, you have a giant alien mug. What
I
gives?
do. I do. And I can only show this side because the other side, the alien has boobs. But my mom got this for me, and it's one of my favorite coffee mugs. So it's my daily driver.
Um, is that because why did she send you a cup with alien with boot? Why did she send you
I
that?
I don't have any idea. I love obscure pottery, and I think she knows that, and just was at a farmer's market. And if somebody sees a multi-alien one with boobs on a coffee mug and they think of me, I'm just taking that as a compliment.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is my mug. I bought this for my wife, I think.
Oh, there you go.
Oh
You
wait,
gotta
you
let that
can't.
shit go.
Hang on. Oh, so you can't see it. I thought it's reversed, but
It's reversed, but
you can still see it.
yeah,
Um, uh, yeah, let that shit go, man.
let it go. Let it go.
Well, we met unofficially a couple times through a maze fit.
Yep.
See you bopping around, and then we had a lovely dinner where I got to sit next to you
Yes.
for. I think we got there and they served us meal the next day. Was it
Yeah,
around
it was
breakfast
it was
time?
a yeah, it was a long waiting period. They wanted to make sure we were hungry enough to be ready to devour what
Should
we
we
had.
shame them publicly or no? Should we not?
No, I think they did a pretty good job, all things considered. You know what, maybe we were all waiting for Hunter, and I think maybe they thought we don't want the food out before he gets there. So I think it was a politeness thing.
Okay, well, good for them.
Yeah,
Good for
100%.
waiting for Hunter, who is always right on time for
Right on
Hunter.
time. Yep.
So when you posted about Phoenix, you said, "Hey, I thought my dreams of coming to a stadium would look different."
Yep.
I thought maybe you were a football player, but then I had heard you were a big basketball player. So did you? And when I do the quick Googles, your basketball stuff comes up. So
Mhm.
did you also play football in high school?
No.
American football for my UK audiences. We're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
American
No,
football.
American football. No, I was a college basketball player, and basketball, my opportunity started really early. I got my first Division One college basketball offer in seventh grade. I had a crazy big growth spurt early. I mean, like walked into seventh grade at 6 feet 4 inches tall, could dunk a basketball, didn't have any of the weird like knee injuries or leg stuff, and so yeah, I was coordinated. And my dad was a quarterback at Vanderbilt in the SEC, and he kind of told me from an early age, like, football just takes everything from you from like a body standpoint. It just your joints, your ligaments, all of those things. And so he was like, Bobby, unless it's like something you're crazy passionate about, it's probably not a pursuit for you. And so I just kind of knew early on basketball was going to be my thing. But I tell this story every once in a while. I don't hold a whole lot of regrets, just not kind of who I am. But I got a I my one of my best friends in high school who's on my basketball team. He was getting recruited. He ended up playing football at Wisconsin. And Jim Tressel, who was the coach at Ohio State, came down to our high school one time, and he pulled me off to the side and he said, Bobby, I'm telling you right now, if you put a pair of shoulder pads on, if you just put them on, you have a offer to play football at Ohio State. We want you there. I don't care what the background is. If you put a pair of football pads on. And I honestly kind of laughed him off. Like at that time, I was ranked in the top 50 in the country in basketball. Like there was no chance I was going to play football. So it was kind of a funny, like, haha, no way. And Ohio State won 2 national championships while I was in college. Yeah, could have been there. And then when I was done playing college basketball, I got a call from the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears to try out. And unfortunately, I was just so burnt out on sports that I was like, I don't want to do that. So yeah, standing at the Arizona Cardinals stadium gave me a little bit of like I wonder what life could have been like in another reality.
Did you do like the whole AAU crazy traveling
Yeah.
stuff? Like, are there players you can name that we would know that you played with back in those days?
Yeah, I played with a bunch of really kind of top tier guys. The Plumlee brothers, who went to Duke, Mason Plumlee, still in the NBA right now, were teammates of mine. Victor Oladipo was a college teammate of mine. I mean, yeah, my age group of guys that I came out with. My year had John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. We had a lot of really good. We had a lot of really good players that year, and yeah, the AAU thing was one of my favorite stories. Was we played a game one time in Las Vegas in some like high school north of town. Early in the morning, it was like an 8:30 game, and I played on a team out of Indiana, which had I think had 4 NBA guys on it. We were every single kid went to high Division One. We played a team called the Atlanta Celtics, which I just mentioned. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins had those guys on it. In the stands on one side where the parents were, there was like 35 people. Just like all of our parents, whoever showed up, it was early in the morning. There's nobody in the gym. On the other side of the court, which was reserved for college coaches, it was wall to wall. There were like 245 coaches packed in to watch that game because that game ended up having like eight NBA players in it. And so yeah, the AAU gauntlet was real. It was a cool ride.
So who were your guys, middle school, high school? Who were you like, I want to be this guy?
I had a couple of different guys. Carmelo Anthony has always been one of my all-time favorite basketball players. I can really shoot the ball, and I loved his confidence of just like, you give me the ball anywhere in the court and I'm going to score. I always thought Kevin Love was another one who I really looked up to, his ability to move the ball down court and do those kind of things. Tim Duncan is kind of my like all-time idol of a basketball player, like doesn't say anything, super fundamental, and just goes out and just
gets the work done,
gives you buckets and wins
5 rings,
100%. So yeah, those were kind of my guys growing up.
And so when did it officially stop? When did it become basketball was not going to be my future?
Yeah, I had an interesting kind of story tying this back towards like, today and HYROX and fitness and all that. I finished playing in 2014, and was just kind of done. And also the European market was really terrible. The economy in Europe was really bad. A bunch of friends who were playing professionally overseas, and it was a weird time where like they would cut checks and it was like a race to the bank because would get them, and then the team would have to go, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to get you the rest of it. So I didn't really want to go play overseas. The economy was bad. I was dating my now wife, and she was like, well, if we're not married, I'm not going with you. And I was like, well, I'd rather stay and get married. That sounds pretty awesome. So I was done playing basketball. In 10 months after playing basketball, I put on 112 pounds.
So you went from what, like 280 to like 400?
No, not quite. I played my last basketball season at like 225. I was really
wow.
Yeah, I was out on the wing. I was shooting the ball a lot. I was guard little guys. So
I can't even imagine.
I know.
You're pretty, that's like and you're now 6'8", right?
Yeah, I'm 6'8". I weigh, like right now, fighting weight's about 260, 265.
Right.
Which is, I've got a lot of muscle on me, but yeah, I got all the way up to like 330, and that was intentional. Like my wife and I were both college basketball players, and we were like, screw this. Nobody's telling us to exercise. We're just going to drink beer, eat pizza, and we're just going to do absolutely nothing for as long as we want to. And it was really fun getting fat. But at some point we moved out to Colorado. I love to snowboard and mountain bike and do all those things. And I was so fat that I was having to like hold my breath to strap my snowboard boots in. And I was like, all right, cool. Something's got to change. And so, yeah, I have 2 sons. My older son is 6, and about 7 years ago now, right? Like the year before he was born, I wanted to be able to say yes to everything. I didn't want him to be like, we live in Colorado. I didn't want him to be like, Dad, I want to go hike or backpack or whatever. And me have to be like, I just can't go do that with you. And so, I found CrossFit at the time, which I still love tremendously. I love the style of training. For me, I like big, heavy, nasty barbells and stuff like that. But started to get really fit, and that was what kind of transitioned me into this fitness and wellness world as a career. So yeah, it was good that I gained 100 pounds. I needed it.
So you and I talked, kind of about a ton of different stuff, and I definitely want to speak with you about the macro of where we're at in the world in fitness. And it's, the reasons that HYROX is successful is they solved this problem that I guess we didn't even think we knew existed. I mean, one of the things that I ask is like, what took people so long to figure out? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people will want to do this thing.
Yep.
Like, if we take out the complicated parts, the complex lifts of CrossFit, how can we
Yep.
get people fit? But we're also living in this time where being fit is really cool, and that wasn't always the case. I mean, when I went to high school, so in the 80s,
Yep.
bruh,
Brah.
you were in the gym and your
Yep.
football bros were in the gym. Nobody else was in the gym. No
No.
girls were in the gym, right?
Yep.
Like the football players. Like, so I played football as a kid, and I literally stopped going. The coach called me and said, "Hey, we're starting a camp." And in my mind, I was like, "Oh, they're going to be like running in the heat and
Yep.
lifting weights." And I was a little guy, you know what I mean? Like I'm average-ish. I'm 5'10", but like at the time, a little still undersized, as they say. Anyway, so it's super cool to be fit. People want to look good on Instagram,
Totally.
and the wellness thing that you and I talked about a lot, like we're in this super cool time.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been asking is like, where are the other companies? Where are the other brands coming in and say, we don't care for number 2 or number 3 to HYROX, because that still means printing lots of money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's certainly an interesting sort of culmination of a lot of different things. I think COVID honestly had a massive play in the wellness world, not necessarily directly with HYROX, but just from a standpoint of, I think it gave the world enough of a pause and a reset that people had to go, okay, I'm at home every day. I'm starting to realize like, oh, the sun is out. I'm not just staring at those LED lights that are in my office building. I really desire other human connection. I mean, I've built my entire basically career these last couple of years off of people needing people, and I think that's really prevalent. But I also think HYROX really, it's an interesting question you ask, and it's one that I've thought about a lot, because I think, in my mind, the closest thing to what HYROX has accomplished would be the running marathon scene from a really high level of, coming into it, whether you've picked a half marathon or a marathon, the distance, the output. HYROX is the same, time or the same race, although it, just like a marathon, the course is different each time. There are small variables that do it, but the reality is people are showing up. They're working towards something. They have a training block. I think the other thing that HYROX has done really well is they've captured an energy. And I've told a lot of people this, like, it's funny, we started talking about like running out of the tunnel. Leaving the tunnel to start a HYROX has a feeling that is very similar to a high output sporting event that most people never get to experience. I've gotten the chance to run out of the tunnel at Madison Square Garden and do these kind of things. That's something most people haven't done, but to run out of the tunnel at the Arizona Cardinals Stadium is something that is, I think, for a lot of people, a sort of eye-opening lifetime achievement sort of goal. And whether you're in a convention center, whether you're out on the pier in New York, HYROX has really captured that energy, that juice that typically has only been accessible through college sports, professional sports, or some of these big marathons. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I also think too, it's hard to capture enough attention for second and third place, because you're being so heavily judged against HYROX or against kind of the main thing. Like, and I think too, there's still this, people can't quite figure out what type of athlete does these kind of sports. And I think that's another really big one, is like, look, if I say, like, I tell people all the time, I've run a couple of marathons, and they're like, no way. Like, I don't look like somebody who should be able to run marathons, because there's a specific look of like, who does a marathon. But I told my wife one time, this was like a couple of months ago, there was a picture of the Elite 15 guys, and I lined them up, and I said, if this was a blind lineup, and I said, what do these people do? You'd have no clue. They do not look like top tier athletes. They do not look like these guys that are put on the pedestal that kids are hanging up, posters of them in their room going, I want to look like that guy. Honestly, Hunter might be the closest thing to it, with the pit vipers on and the mullet flying. That's like a specific look. But like the rest of everybody else just looks like your substitute math teacher who's super fit, and you wouldn't have any idea. And so I think it's a really interesting
Maybe that's
thing.
why they take their shirts off, because they really want us to know. I don't know what
Okay.
happened to you. I
I
said
don't
maybe
know.
that's when they take their shirts off because like Dylan Scott doesn't look imposing otherwise, right?
No, not even a little bit. And it's interesting. It's like, but Dylan's a great example of if you were to build a HYROXer, you'd build him just like him, long, tall, strong, like fast, has great like running cadence, is just strong enough to be competitive at all of the stations, but can get out and fly. Like, so it's an interesting thing because I don't think you can quite peg a person into that. And I mean, you look at our team we brought last weekend or a week and a half ago to Phoenix. Like, we had a guy who at one point weighed 500 pounds and is down losing weight and goes out and does a solo. You've got a lot of people that are really great runners that are trying to get stronger. You got a lot of people like me who are strong and can breeze through the stations, but just are out there running, 8-minute 1000s where it's just like, oh my God, the whole race for me is running. So it's like, it does attract such a wide audience. But I think, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what Apex and Affix and all of these other kind of
All the X's.
all the X's, yeah. What they do on that sort of tier 2 stage of like, cool, do we want to be this big global competition or do we want to be something that is more localized? But yeah, it's an interesting period of where people are going and what they're interested in.
Yeah, I just got off the phone yesterday with a guy who it's a gym brand and they're looking to,
Yeah.
and it feels like that's what people are doing is they're going like LT or like what's Apex from again?
Apex is down in Austin. That's the one that's like the kind of like the NFL combine for the everyday man.
I thought it was from a specific gym brand, but I feel like
I don't
that's
think so,
that's a way people are trying to, like Orange Theory I think wants to launch something, and I think people are going that route, which is sort of like the inside out way. So I come from the obstacle racing side. I think we talked about this.
Yep.
And back then, people saw 10,000 people at a Warrior Dash or at a Spartan or a Tough Mudder, and everybody who owned a racetrack or a farm or was like, shit, I can do this. I'll put up a couple of fucking walls and we're good. So you got a ton of, and you did have some very solid 2s and 3s. You have Rugged Maniac and you have Savage Race and a bunch more, right? And then along with a lot of mom and pops. And so I thought for sure HYROX and DECA kick off 2021, slow start with pandemic, at least in America. And then like every year I'm like, cool, here comes some more. And I'm just over here waiting. Athex is finally about to start here after threatening to for a few years. And again, I know it's not easy. Like talk is cheap, ideas you have to actually execute. But I can't believe there's not somebody somewhere in a boardroom with some dollars going, hey, Under Armour, I don't know, somebody like, let's put a cool thing together. Let's go.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, with the way, I mean, I think the other thing you mentioned is like social media and how cool it is to be fit and to do these things. You wonder too, just like, okay, HYROX took a huge step, in my opinion, 2 weeks ago, getting State Farm Stadium and doing it in a place like that. Because again, no matter who you were, your content on the internet, which at the end of the day is kind of the only thing that matters from these races. And like even the people who are, HYROX, the winners, they show their checks they won. They'll make more in their ad postings on their brand deals around that HYROX race than they would make if they won that race 6 times in a row, with where the payouts are. So I think it's one of those other things where as these second tier things come up, if I were consulting on that, I would say, look, no matter what you do, your highest output needs to be what it looks and feels like visually. Even if it's not perfectly organized in the background, there's a little bit of hiccups there. At the end of the day, if I like DECA, unfortunately, I don't care who it is. When people post content, DECA does not look cool. There's no part of it that you look at that you're like, whoa, like that looks like something that I want to get some juice out of. It doesn't visually stand out.
I'm going to give you even worse example, which is not even me. So don't get mad at me, DECA. Ryan Kent won the world championship.
Okay.
And we're sitting at lunch, me, him, and Rich. I don't mean to brag. I know these guys. I know I'm a big deal. And he had a picture of him like jumping over the box, which is like the first station. Right? And he's like, this is never going to be cool. Like,
No.
being DECA world champion, unfortunately, does. And so sadly, they've lost a lot of people
Mhm.
who were in there kind of doing both. Meg was doing both. Dylan was doing both. A lot of folks. And they haven't, I've never heard it put so succinctly that even if the product wasn't as good as you're saying, they missed out on the part that is
Yep.
most important, which is looking cool and getting that attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, I mean, like, you just look, and what I think is so cool is, as somebody who works in the content space, the same visual edit that a Hunter or a Meg or a Joanna or anybody's going to put out after HYROX, the guy that ran a 2.5 hour mixed doubles with his wife that they had trained for, he's making the same edit. He's showing the runs, he's showing the sled pulls. The visually, the output is so similar, and that's what I think HYROX has captured. Is that I mean, literally, I was talking about the other day. It's like HYROX is diabolical in the way it's set up. The race setup is so genius, of that you have these moments where it feels like a lull, where you're like, okay, I'm on the rower, and then I've got farmer's carry, and you're like, okay, this is cool, but you're staring at the gauntlet of weighted lunges straight into wall balls. And I think it's so designed well that it does look like the same output for the everyday Joe versus the top tier kind of professional athlete. And so, yeah, that would be the thing that I would be most interested in, is how does one of these other race series capture the visual part? Because, yeah, you come back from a marathon, you come back from a HYROX, you're showing your friends your photos. You just have to capture that in something else to get these people to want to come, because, yeah, signing up and being in a little tiny, off room at a convention center just doesn't quite look like it's something you're like, oh cool, look what I did this weekend. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Phoenix specifically, because of how well lit it was, like it looks even better. Like I look amazing. I'm like, this
Yeah,
picture is fucking dope
you
as
did.
shit.
You really did.
Shut up.
I saw him.
Um, well, thanks. I want to shout out my partner, Cheryl Snow, because she was smart enough to like, hey, let's be matching. And because she's smart, knows I'm not going to bother, she's like, I'll get the shirts.
I'll get the shirts. Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
Some sweet Lululemon, and she went with the HFM colors
Yep.
ish. It's like a cool teal looking thing.
Hey, look good, feel good, play good, pay good. That is an undefeated algorithm right there, that everybody, if you're going, I don't care what level you are, if your outfit's fire and you feel good about it, you're going to play better. And if you play better, everything goes good from there.
So what I said in the early days in 2021, as it was starting to grow, I thought this is great and will continue to grow. I hope the ceiling's really high.
Yeah.
And I feel like at some point people will say, I went from a 110 to a 105 to a 101 to a 1 hour, and now I'm an hour every time, or I'm 59 and change every time, and I'm ready to move on with my life, right?
Yeah.
Or do some other brand if they come around. So I've been saying for a long time, I think they got to do like the HYROX half. And they're like, of course not. We never would. But I feel like that's what's probably going to happen. Maybe it's 2 years. Maybe it's 5 years. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? On the repeatable is cool, but at some point repeatable becomes tired.
Yeah. It's interesting because, again, using like marathoning as a good example, which has a ceiling that, like, at some point every person has their like lower threshold of what they can run a marathon in. And, like, the other interesting part about HYROX is, like, you have people that are amazingly great athletes that don't show up on race day. And I think the uninformed consumer looks at that and goes like, wow, they just aren't that good. But the reality is, like, just like a marathon, you can have the best training block. Your VO2 max can be 3 points higher than it's ever been. And you can just like not sleep that great the night before and show up and be like, my legs feel like crap. Like, I'm just not outputting what I want to. So I think that part will keep people inside of HYROX longer than maybe just I've hit my ceiling, like all these things. My gut, because I said the same thing too early on in HYROX, was like, it's a very cool setup, but at some point it's going to lose some appeal. Yeah, I don't know if it's like there's a longer distance, there's a change they make. One of the ones I've always thought about is like, okay, there's 8 stations. What if you went to 15 or 16 possible stations, you know them. Because one of the things that CrossFit was always great at was like when you showed up, you didn't know if you were going to get heavy gymnastics. You didn't know if you were going to get power. You didn't know if you were going to get just straight endurance. And you had to be ready for like all of these modalities that you had to be pretty good at. So I wonder, is there a place where HYROX says, okay, cool, here's the 16 movements. We're going to 3 days before release the order, and it's a random draw. And it's like, yeah, it sucks that wall balls is station 2, but in this race, that's what it is. And you finish with, who knows what the other movements are. And again, I think what's great is that HYROX has captured this thing of every movement anybody can do, kind of without any sort of training. You don't really need a ton of training to know how to do a walking lunge or a burpee broad jump. You might have to figure it out a little bit, but that could be an interesting way where it added a little bit of like, it's funny. They always like drop the course on Instagram. Like you report on it. You're always one of the people who's like, let's talk about the HYROX course inside this thing, because it changes a little bit, but nobody cares. Like for the everybody who's not the elite 15, they're not looking at the course going, is this going to run fast? And how do I approach my rock zone? And what do I know? Nobody looks at that.
Do you want to know what the number one engaged stuff that I have is?
Is it the course?
I used to not give a shit either. And I said what you said. And then I was like, let me put this thing up. And I try to have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
I do try. Like, listen, I think about, like, what do I want to see, right? So yeah. I know, because I've been to the Navy Pier, you don't get dropped off at the beginning of the Navy Pier. You get dropped off at the Sable. So like somebody told me, like, I'm so glad you told me that, because I was going to have to walk a mile, which you learned the hard way the first time. Or I put, a little cheeky thing like there's a bathroom in there, and people are like, thank God there's a bathroom in there. So yeah, people love that shit, even though that their times aren't going to matter that much. They think it is.
Yes, but I think you're hitting on something that I actually think is way more important. What I'm talking about is like just the course itself, like the race thing. Nobody's changing their training plan or like adjusting once they know what the course layout is. Now, what you did just hit, in my opinion, is the HYROX. If you're listening to this, it is the least served thing. And it's what I want you guys to pay more attention to, which is how do we serve all of these people? They just changed it. It used to be that before the spectator passes, it was kind of the thing of like, okay, cool. If I'm racing, if it's Friday through Sunday, I'm going to go Friday, get my race, my band, and then I'm going to go hang out. I'm going to go see it. I'm going to go look at it. I'll leave. I'll come back and watch some friends. And then I don't race until tomorrow or the next day. Well, and obviously I understand they've grown and they've got to keep, numbers where it needs to be, but changing that, now people are just kind of like figuring out in a city, like, okay, all I did was came to do HYROX. What do I do around HYROX? And what you're hitting, I think, is the most underserved part. There's so many brands that are looking to activate outside of the walls that are not HYROX sponsors. There are so many other gyms, recovery places that are going, look, if 15,000 people are coming into our city, we want to capitalize and offer what we bring to the table and how we do this. And that there is such an unorganized amount of information outside of HYROX that I think what you just said is like where you get dropped off for the stadium, where there's bathrooms, where people can find food, because you just see people outside of these stadiums like zombies, kind of like looking around like, well, what do I do until it's my time to race? And so I do think that is a highly underserved part of these are becoming, you look at like the Super Bowl last weekend, there was so much fanfare that happened outside of that game. The game was just kind of a small part of that. HYROX is starting to capture that sort of essence of like the race is here, but all of this other stuff is happening around it. So that's one thing I think people care about a lot.
How would you rate the tailgate party in terms of how the brands did executing it?
As the caveat of somebody who builds experiences and does that kind of stuff professionally, I would give it a B. Like, I mean that as like complimentary, like kind of the first time that they've done something like that.
B plus, B minus, straight B.
I'm going to go straight B. No plus, no minus, just right at a B. It was very above average. Like It wasn't outstanding. And I think I wanted to see, there were a couple of brands that it looked like the tailgate was an afterthought, which was like, we have our booth inside. We're just going to kind of put something out here to just have our name there. And for the first one, I also understand so many of these brands are so undermanned when it comes to, their field marketing teams, that like they're trying their best to do this. But I do think the concept was so incredibly good for HYROX of right outside the main doors on the Saturday, there's all of this stuff going on. And what was cool was like you watched, like as somebody who was in there, there was a time where within about a minute, Hunter came walking through, Lauren Weeks was right behind him, and like the vibe there was like if a bunch of NBA fans were chilling and like LeBron James walked through, it got kind of quiet. Everybody like looked up and like, and then you see these people and they're very normal people. They're like high fiving their friends and they sit down and they grab a bite to eat. And like, I think conceptually it was perfect. I thought it was pretty well executed being the first time. And that's something that I want to see HYROX do more of, where they are giving people something that is their product that is outside of just inside the stadium when it's time to race.
Yeah, I clocked, as the kids say. At one point, I was walking by, and Jess Petro and Joanna were like signing footballs.
Uh-huh.
I think that was what was the first booth? Was that the Puma booth? Whatever the first
It
one was.
Puma right there. Yeah.
And I saw that as I was walking by, and I was like, okay, they've done something right. I would give it a little bit higher. I'd go on the B+ side.
Yeah.
Compared to when you look at, what a lot of times you see is just like, oh, here's a booth, here's some people, and how do we actually activate? And it doesn't take much, because people are in fact looking for stuff to do. If you've been to whether it's a 5K or a Spartan race or anything else, and like the one thing that has the pull-up contest will probably have the biggest line because it's actually something.
Yep. I thought the brands did a really good job of that. I thought the activations that were happening were really good. I thought Puma putting people's names and their times on jerseys, that's a really cool thing. People love a this is what I did and I was here, like a time and place thing. I thought Manly's truck pull was a really good fun activation. I thought the center stuff was pretty good. In the middle, Go Brewing's doing beer push-ups and all that kind of stuff. Amazfit had the opposite idea, which was like, let's let people relax with the sauna cold plunge and the recovery. The other booths were very much just sort of like, hey, I'm here, like we're in the thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm good with the B+. I thought it was great because, again, it's serving something the people are looking for. It wasn't like trying to sell them something they didn't know they needed. It was, okay, cool, I just raced and I want to be here because I'm feeling the energy. The dopamine is just like streaming out of my ears from all the things that I've done, and I want to keep the vibes alive. So yeah, I thought that was well done.
So you told me, and I know that you are a connector. You've worked a lot of events. You've worked with a lot of brands. However, when I did see you were like, I'm actually getting out of that. So what is it? Do you have a North Star about, okay, this is what we're going to do next? Or do you and your wife just kind of jump in like, this opportunity seems cool?
Yeah. So, I think the North Star for me is that as I look ahead, and I've been in the community building space, the brand activation space for the last couple of years, we are going to hit sort of an authenticity gap of social media with high paid influencers. And then it moved towards UGC because people are fighting for authenticity. They want videos that they don't feel like are, just super curated and all this stuff. And so everybody's fighting for that. Part of the reason I love those activations so much is like, I just feel like no matter what happens with AI, no matter what happens with social media, the way that brands prioritize authenticity is to look their customer in the eyes, is to do something in person, is to have somebody experience something that ties them to their brand, that gives them this feeling of like, I felt like the most me in that situation. And because I felt that way, the brands that helped me feel that or have that experience are the ones that I am tying my loyalty and my money to. And so, no, when I said I'm getting out of it, for the last 3 years have run a really big social wellness community. So we had groups all over the country. We were doing 30 to 35 events a month that were all just built for people to experience themselves and each other in new ways. So we were doing fitness style stuff. We were doing recovery. We were doing trail running, run clubs, social gatherings, dinners. Like it was literally just I would always say it was like a group of rad people doing rad shit together, like if that was who you were looking for. And it was wildly successful. We were one of the first kind of really big nationwide communities. I'm really proud of what we built. I think there's some stuff on the brand side that I probably don't need to get into on like why I wanted to change that. It's an uphill battle in that communities blew up really fast. And so there were a lot of people that were getting money from brands that were wholeheartedly unready and not able to deliver value back. And so brands started to get a little skittish on like, where do we put our money with these communities? Because just because you're an influencer and can pull 200 people on a weekend to come together doesn't mean that you have any sort of marketing chops or understand the deliverables to come back to these brands with. So what I'm changing my business to is just focused on these experiential in-person brand activation events. And that's around kind of what we're talking about. That's HYROX and marathons and big fitness festivals, but that's also, I want to work alongside these sort of, call them tier 2 events. The brands that are out there that are saying, hey, I'm okay having the second or third spot behind HYROX because I know there's a lot of people. Those are the brands that I want to work with to say, hey, I've seen what's worked in these places. I think I have a really good idea of how you can capture something that maybe isn't better than what HYROX is doing, but is unique enough that people are going to say that's something that I want to spend my time going to. So yeah, that's what I'm focused on right now.
So did you actually, what was the name of your company? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, ISO Experiences is my agency.
What was it before? 360?
Full Circle. Full Circle. Full Circle was my community brand.
Full Circle, not 360 is close. I know there's
Full Circle. Those are the same thing.
Yes, there's a bunch of agencies called 360 though. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I told you. Funny enough, that's how I started. My first grown-up adult business was I was a guy that got hired at those companies to do events, and I saw what I thought was like a lot of people aren't like, they hire anybody and then they're late to pay everybody. So can I solve this problem? And I kind of did, and it was super cool. And so I'm always looking at events through that lens and how well people without naming names, if we're going to be nice, since you're playing nice, I'll play nice. I've seen HYROX booths, so a big expensive booth, and like the guy or gals are like just on their phones 8 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours waiting for people to come up to them. Now I'm not saying they have to all be giant personality Matts or Bobbies, but you got to look people in the eye, as you said, and engage. And the minute they look at you, at least try to be like, do you want to sample some X, or do you want to questions? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think everybody spends so much of their time thinking about product market fit, which is great. But that layer deeper of people product fit in person, especially, like, shout out to the people that work booths, because that's a beat down. Those are long days. And there's a lot of people that are both, they're so excited to be at a thing like a HYROX. They seem like they're excited to talk to you. They're not. They're kind of just looking for free stuff and like trying to sort of figure out where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do. But yeah, I do think that's a market that I want to serve, and that I think you and I have connected about a lot, which is like, man, these companies are paying a tremendous amount of money to come along and sponsor a group like a HYROX. But that, in my opinion, is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what it takes to integrate. Because at the same time, these athletes that are going to things like HYROX, they want to build their stack of stuff that continues to tie them to HYROX. It's not just having a time. Think about how many people had never once considered Puma as a shoe or any shoe. They were like, those are just those little Italian leather slippers that guys use for race cars. But now they're going, no, I wear Puma stuff, whatever. They're looking for all the other things. I get my supplements through Manly, and you know what? Like, I did have a Garmin, but I bought an Amazfit because they have a HYROX mode and they're at that thing. And when people say like, what is that watch? I'm not saying, oh, it's just a watch. I'm saying it's a watch that has HYROX on it, which is then saying something about me as a person. Like, hey, I'm actually really cool, and you should think that because I do HYROX. So it's one of those things where I think there's so many brands. You and I, we'll play nice. There's so many brands.
I have to call out one, damn it. I have to call out one. And because I've done it before, and I'll just listen because I want them to hear me. Super Italia Coffee, okay? I first saw them at the World Champs, and they did a great job. And there were, as far as I could tell, like real employees in there.
Yeah.
or at least real staff. And I've been to 3 or 4 North American races where there was either A, 0 people in the booth for the weekend, or B, a local volunteer / person that they stuck a shirt on and said, here's how you mix the coffee, and doesn't know anything
Were
about the
they
product.
even at Phoenix?
See, you don't even fucking know. That's what I'm saying. And you pay attention to what booths are set up. Yes, they were there I think they were in merch. But because I'm a fan of coffee, right? And I did tag them a couple times when I saw them in Chicago, this is the part, the breakdown of somebody in a boardroom somewhere said, let's build this thing. We have to hire a fabricator to build the fucking thing. We got to ship it all over the world. Let's get behind it. So they're, I think, one end of the spectrum of like, come on, you've done the hard part. Now send a qualified brand ambassador to serve coffee to people. They cost $20 an hour. It's not that hard. Maybe it's 25 now. I don't know.
Well, and I also think too, just like the way, in my opinion, and this is some of the stuff that I sell to brands, but it's like I look at this where it's like you get, as a HYROX sponsor, you get tickets that you can give to athletes or participants to come into the race. You obviously get a position inside, either down on the race floor, in the building as people do this. And I think it's one of those things where like people want to see people that they can relate to. And whether that's finding an elite 15 type of person that you could say, hey, like, I only need you for half an hour, but can you come pour coffee for people? Because, look, you walk away and you go, I got served coffee today by Rich Ryan. You're like, oh my God, that's like, it's a silly thing. And he didn't have to do anything, smile and be rich, which is great. But it's one of those things where I think that connection to the larger audience is so small in the way of like what you have to do, that people not focusing on it is such a miss when it comes to how these brands could affect the people who are obviously, like, every person that you see at a race like that has spent probably between $1,000 to $2,000 to make that weekend happen, with flights and Airbnbs or hotel rooms and a rental car and their ticket to, like, they're investing a tremendous amount of time and money to it. And I just think so many brands are missing the mark on like how they capture that.
So I want to get back to what you were saying about, so what's the difference between the old company? What's the 360 full circle?
Full circle.
Right.
Yeah.
And the new one, or
yeah.
Did they both exist? Did you rebrand?
Yeah, no, we've closed Full Circle down. Full Circle was built as a community of people. It was a club that in your city, we were in Denver, Austin, Southern California, New York. We were in a bunch of different places. It was a way to, our slogan was make health social. And we felt like coming out of COVID, there were so many people who were saying, okay, I don't know where to meet people. I don't know where to sort of get my kicks outside of like, do I go to the bar on a Friday night? And if I do that, then what am I sacrificing from a health standpoint across the weekend? It just signed up for my first 10K or half marathon, whatever. Do I go to the bar on a Friday night to see my friends, to fill that social cup? But then I'm like, my long run on Saturday is going to be pretty crappy. Or do I tell my friends to kick rocks and my social cup is low, but I feel better and I'm chasing this sort of health dream? And so, yeah, it's one of those things where we were trying to just serve a place where, I mean, we would throw these massive community throwdowns, 200 people. There would be a workout, there would be sauna cold plunge, there would be products. And so people got to come, move, feel really good, but then also meet a bunch of people who are living life in the same direction. So it was really cool. We worked with a ton of amazing brands that sponsored us, that allowed us to produce these events for people. But for me, I think that was a little bit of a flash in the pan of sort of a, made you feel really good for that day, but then you just went back to your normal life and all the things that sort of make you want to feel quite not as good. So yeah, I think for me, it's like, I know how to build these experiences for people. I want to do that for brands. I have another business that I sort of took what I learned from Full Circle and I leveraged into. I have a membership thing. It launches at the end of this month in Denver to start. But it's basically a curated version of ClassPass. There are so many gyms that hate ClassPass because the ClassPass people take up a ton of reservations. The gym doesn't make any money on it. And those are people that are never going to convert to paying members of a gym. If I just have access to everywhere, then I don't need a membership to anywhere specific. So I'm taking all of my relationships that I've built with gyms and studios and co-working and meal prep and business development and all of those things, and I'm building a curated membership plan which gives people access to the top places that they want to be, in a desire to create a membership where you say, hey, I have a home gym and then I use all these other places. So yeah, still leveraging that, but that was the big change.
So that's Horizon?
That's Horizon. So the Horizon Club we'll start in Denver. If we can get proof of concept and show that what I think is going to work does work, we'll take that and move that to multiple cities. But then my ISO agency is how I work directly with brands to create these experiences.
So for Horizon, I give you X a month and you tell me which experiences I'm going to do this month. Is it weekends? Is it?
Yep. No. So the way it's built is are you familiar with Founders Card? They were like, Founders Card was this big perk program for people that were like professional entrepreneurs. And so it gave them discounts and perks at airport clubs, on flights, on hotels, on restaurants. It was like everything you do in your life. That's the kind of concept I'm modeling what I've done afterwards. So inside of my program, you will have gyms, studios, which would be yoga, Pilates, spin, those kind of things. You will have recovery, which is sauna, cold plunge, and as well as the other modalities, red light, dry needling, massage. You also have business development, which is co-working spaces, groups that are doing networking events. And then down the line from there, smoothie shops, meal prep, all of those kind of things. If you're trying to live a really healthy lifestyle.
So I get an email every week, every month.
Yes, you get emails, you buy the pass and you're inside of it. As soon as you're in that, you have a massive offer list that you get to start to pick from. We actually, in a couple of months, we'll have an AI assistant that will help walk you through it so that you can tell it things you're interested in, the kind of exercise you're doing, the life you're living. Do you have kids? What kind of schedule do you have? And it'll volunteer perks, but it'll basically be, okay, hey, Matt, you've really wanted to try Bobby's gym, but you haven't been over there yet. Bobby's Gym's offering you 3 classes that you get to use. They're not random drop-ins. They are classes that the gym has chosen. So it's a Tuesday night at 6:30 and you have a certain number of spots to do that. Once you've used your 3 classes, you then have earned and unlocked the next level of perks, which would be, hey, a 10-pack of classes to Bobby's Gym is normally $350, but you're being offered it for $275 because you're a Horizon Club member, or a discounted monthly membership to become a member of that gym. And then other perks include like drop-ins at sauna studios. If you have a smoothie shop in town that makes great protein pack stuff, maybe it's 20% off just every time you go because you're a member of this club. And then we also do host 1 to 2 curated events each month that members just automatically get access to. So we're doing one next month called a dynamic dinner, which I have a buddy who leads. They're epic. You leave your phone at the door. You do sorts of really integrated. You do eye gazing. So you and I, Matt, might have to sit across from each other and look at each other in the eyes for a couple of minutes without saying anything. It's a guided experience, but those are the ones where people leave going like, wow, I fundamentally feel different.
So you've got a gazillion relationships and have done this successfully for years. Building this, how much of your time are you spending, let's call it cold calls, even though they might be warm, like DMing, calling, emailing, or do you give that away? Does your wife do that? Like what's your kind of process?
I think with anything, it's changed over time. In the beginning, like I have a lot of people who've asked, like, Bobby, how did you get yourself into this position? And for me, it was a lot of like really asking to be in the right rooms and trying to get myself in there. The story I tell all the time is one of my dear friends and people I look up to tremendously is Eric Hinman. If you've been online and you're in the wellness world, you maybe haven't been able to escape Eric. He's unbelievable in what he does. But Eric lived in Denver, and 4 years ago, I sent him a cold DM. Like I was working a construction job and I just said, hey, I'm so interested in the way you do your business. Could I take you to coffee and pick your brain? And he said, no, come to my house and get in the sauna, which I was like, all right. That's like, my wife was like, you're going to sauna with a guy from the internet. I'm like, I'm really big. He's not going to kidnap me. Like I'll be fine. But yeah, I did that and I got to Eric's house and I got to meet an amazing group of people. And once I showed that I had value to add, Eric would say, hey, Bobby, I've got some people coming over. Do you want to come over and hang out tonight? And I got in that room. And then I leveraged those relationships to the guy who I started Full Circle with, who is my business partner and one of my really good friends. I met in the sauna at Eric's house. We saw each other at an event a couple of weeks later. Like, it really, there's a lot of cold calling in the beginning of just, I want to meet these people. And now, because people know what I do, most of it now is getting introductions from friends. I'll meet you and you'll go, oh, Bobby, this is really interesting. You do this thing and you know these people. I need to introduce you to X, Y, and Z people because they're going to help. So it's like the tide has turned. I'm not doing quite as much cold calling. I still am. Like, you and I have talked about a very specific HYROX partner that I am interested in working with and helping out. And I cold called them and took a little bit. I am meeting with them. But it's one of those things where I'm still doing that. But yeah, it's definitely I went to Brian Mazza's HPLT this last weekend in Boulder, which is his high performance lifestyle training group that he's had. He sold it to Lifetime last year.
Wow.
So now it's a part of Lifetime. But, that was a room with 40 unbelievably successful business owners and athletes. We got to hear from David Roche, who set the Leadville 100 record the last 2 years, from all sorts of amazing people that came up and spoke. And so I think, like, I made a couple Instagram videos on it. Like, getting in the right room is so important, but that's step one. You have to be able to show that you can add value and people want you there. Like, just getting in the room is not going to solve the problem. So yeah, that's where I'm at currently.
Don't be a vampire. Show value, right?
Exactly.
I mean, and listen, even if you're not an entrepreneur, I've, as someone that hired a lot of people that had a staffing company, it's like the guys and gals that are superstars show up right away. Like, that's the guy, or like, that's that person immediately gets promoted, or the next time you have a job, they get the first call and a bump because they've showed themselves to be, I'm going to say, like, invaluable. Like, well, shit,
Yep.
this, like, and I don't expect everybody to be that way, every single employee to be that way, or every staff member to be that way. But we're in this. I want to know what you think of this, Bob, because you're a little younger than me, right? Or you're like, I'm Gen X. You're the one behind that, right?
I'm a 1990 baby, so
right.
I'm technically a millennial,
right.
I think.
So the idea of, speaking of wellness and self-care, which didn't exist before, right? But the line got crossed a little bit into the entitled thing, and you see people post and they're kind of proud of it, of like, well, because I forgot to set my alarm, don't be mad at me because I have ADD. And it's like, whoa, like, no, that's not self-care. Like, there's some basics here. And yes, sometimes you do stay an extra hour late. Sometimes you do something for nothing because like, so how do you see all that going, knowing like how bad it swung back? It seems like, especially with your generation and younger.
Yeah. I think it also is like the lens you're looking at it through. Like,
I'm a boomer. Are you going to call me a boomer?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is I used to do, I worked in construction for 10 years before I got into fitness, and I would go to somebody's house that they had just purchased and they would go, oh my God, what do you think? And in my brain, I'm thinking, your trim profile doesn't match around the floor. They missed, like, I saw all the imperfections because that was what I did professionally. And I had to smile and go, God, it's so great. I'm so happy for you guys, like, and I think in this wellness world, I'm constantly balancing yes, there is this weird entitled thing towards health and wellness. And like, I feel like right now, at least on social media, it always falls on one side or the other. It's either I'm better than you, or look, I still do it. And I like occasionally smoke cigarettes. That there's this like polar kind of opposite. But I also think at the end of the day, as somebody who works inside of this business, everybody's looking for a hook. Everybody's looking for the thing that that will get them attention. And so it's hard for me to believe that any of that's kind of real, because that person that's their livelihood. They have to post videos that you engage with. And whether you engage positively, whether you engage angrily, whether you look at him and go, that guy's a prick and he's way better than everybody. He might be a really genuine guy, but if his content made you feel that way, you engaged with it and you're helping pay him. So there's a weird balance in this thing, as somebody who looks at it of like, it's funny. I'll give a great example. I get an ungodly amount of free products sent to my house all the time, because just every brand I work with is so gracious that even if we don't work together, they'll go, "Hey, can we send you, like, I mean, literally, like, around my desk right now, I have like just an ungodly amount of stuff that comes all the time." And my dad will come over and my dad will go, "What do you got?" And he'll like be looking through my stuff and he'll go, "What, Bobby, what do you take in? What does this thing work?" And I'll go, "I don't take any of that." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I just take creatine and drink water and go outside in the sun." Like, and I think it's one of those things where, like, in my world, being outside, moving, seeing the sun, having my shirt off every once in a while, drinking a lot of water, getting creatine, that's the like version of health that I want. I know the people that take hundreds of supplements and swear by, whatever. Like, if you're a good runner, carbon plated shoes matter for you. For 99% of everybody else, it just is something that makes you feel good. And I think in this world of health and wellness, we're balancing that line all the time. And so, yeah, I think it's a weird world. And I really feel bad for the people that are like hungry for information and they're trying to use social media as the barometer for what's real and what's not, because the line to know it is so thin that most people can't tell. So yeah, it's a weird world, but I think everything corrects itself. Like, at some point, like, these 27-year-old dudes that just every post is their shirt off and how much they lift and how fast they run. My only caution to them is like, what happens if you get injured? And what happens in 3 or 4 years when life changes? You're a little bit older, things are happening. Like, I think at some point it's going to correct. But yeah, it's a strange space to live in right now.
All right, I think that's a good place to wrap up for our first
Yeah.
on the record chat. I
All
know
right.
we'll do this again because we liked each other right
Yeah.
away.
Heck yeah, Matt, thank you for this. I knew, same thing, met you and was just like, man, like, this is somebody who's seeing life from a very similar vantage point, and is interested in a lot of the same things. So I appreciate the time.
And I want to say, for the record,
For the
for the
record, on the
record, I want to say, for the record, I don't do. I see. Don't speak in absolutes. I almost rarely never like go to events like that one, because I want to, after working all day, I want to be in my room. I want to be in my little shell. And first of all, it started early. If it said 8 p.m., wouldn't have made it. It said 6:30.
Yep.
We didn't eat till 8, but it said 6:30, and I went. And at one point, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Anyway, I'm really glad I went. So step
Yeah.
outside your comfort zone is what I'm trying to say. All right, dude. Good talk.
Heck yeah,
I'm
thank
going
you.
to take us off record now.
Let's go.